Kojiro, this world is like a void, a place without scent, touch, and taste. He half expected this isolation, this deprivation of his senses. He half expected nothingness, a simple piece of his existence. Kojiro! With his eyes still closed, he swears he catches a whiff of a pleasant scent of lavender and jasmine that begins to surround him, consumed him, and overwhelmed him. It is far from unpleasant. No, this scent is soothing, comforting, and familiar. It welcomes back the memories that he held dear and cherished. Memories that he had clung to, dug his fingers into, latched onto as if they were his most valuable objects. Wake up, my son. Golden and red eyes slowly flutter open. A white light of purity blinds his vision momentarily. It should have hurt. It should have burned his sensitive retina and rendered him blind. But nothing of the sort had happened as his irises adjusted. Once fully awakened and focused, Kojiro found himself laying in a prosperous land of dandelions and frieza, with the sky above painted in a mixed colors, gold, pinks, and blues. Slowly, he sits up from his laying position, taking a moment to collect his thoughts, before maneuvering to himself to stand up fully. With wary eyes, he stared into this beautiful unknown world. Is this reality? No, this doesn't feel like reality, as he saw half the land was blank, like an unfinished canvas. His legs automatically walked forward. It was as if he had strings attached to him, and he was a marionette being controlled by an unseen puppeteer. Before he could step forward into the presence of white space, he suddenly felt a pair of arms gently wrap around his body. Looking around his shoulder, he is met with a being of extraordinary beauty, an angelic being that resembles a human female. With her unparalleled grace and elegance, and supernatural attractive face and figure, there is little way to differ from her human. She dons beautiful robes mixed in pinks, whites, and ultra greens, and a long translucent cloth that floats around her head that Kojiro surprisingly knows as a hanguramo. A Teiyu, a beautiful servant of the Emperor of Heaven. As she tilts her head in the other direction, not facing him, Kojiro follows a cozy wooden Mika that he didn't even notice was there. Hesitant, Kojiro considers his options: stay there or walk towards it. The Tenyuo released him as she pointed towards the Minka, and it was clear that he is indeed supposed to go there. Going with the ladder, Kojiro started towards the house. He had an inkly feeling where he was, and his memory were slowly filling the empty spots. Rich green grass began filling into the rest of the blank canvas, and each foot forward, more of sensory was revealed to him. The trees, the familiar orchard teeming with beautiful ripe fruit. Kojiro had a feeling that he knew exactly where he was going. His body's old instincts knew that this path led to happiness. Is this heaven? Approaching the house, he saw a familiar figure waiting for him. There you are, my son, Ruka Rengoku, his beloved mother said. She sat on the egwa, knees folded neatly under her person in shindwa, and hands rested in her lap. The warm, lovely smile on her lips greeted him. Kojiro felt overwhelming joy course throughout his very soul as he wonders the sight of his breathtaking mother. Mother? There's no earthly word to describe the sheer amount of joy coursing through him to see his beloved mother again. She looked to be in perfect health, no signs of fatigue, affliction, or ailment. Her dark hair shined down to her shoulders, and dark scarlet eyes that still held the wisdom only a seasoned woman like her faced in life, and the love her child that only mother'd possess. Kojo thinks that he might be hallucinating as she pats her hand on her lap, a slight gesture telling him to come rest his head, just as he'd done as a child. "Come here, my son." Her voice full of life and is kind. "It's just good to finally see you again, with my own two eyes." He wishes he could offer the same sentimental. That battle with the demon Akaza had destroyed his left eye, and no doubt he looks like a broken doll in his beautiful mother's presence. Doing as told, Kojo stepped into the wooden igwa, and as he did so, he felt light as a feather. The pain in his eye was well, and wounded in his chest was no longer there, much to his surprise, or perhaps not to his surprise. His hearing was strong and clear, that he could hear the sounds of joy and liberation around him. The sight of his frustration eye, now back, and the blood that oozed from his wound was gone. The polished blade of his Nichiren sword tucked at his sides, and the hoary flaming pattern on his back no longer felt like it burned. Kojo's physique, worn a battle that had scars embroidered in his flesh, had completely healed. This sentiment battle of his, the life struggle, no longer existed in the Opta. There's no pain, no sickness, no war, no struggle, and no death here, as Kojo gently lays his head onto his mother's lap. Soft, familiar hands that once held him, cooked meals for him, and dressed him, gently caress through his fiery locks as Ruka smiles, happy to finally have her son in her arms again. "Mother?" "Yes, my son?" "Where am I?" Kojo couldn't help but ask, though it was obvious where he was. But it seems that even in the afterlife, curiosity still gripped him as he heard his mother quarrel. "You're in a place that exists in between the world of the living and the heavens. To some, it is the land of the dead. To others, it's a land of nothingness. And to many, it's a place of waiting," Ruka explains to her wondrous son. Kojo continues to listen, his gaze looking out at the vast heavenly field. "It goes by many, many names, by people of many cultures and regions. It's a place where souls are prepared for heaven, a place you are named after, my son." "Penority?" he questions. "Yes." Ruka smiles, proud that he'd answer his own question, and she confirmed it. "Ah, so that explains it. So he entered the form of purgatory, a world that's separate from the normal plane, where his Rengoku, spirit/soul, is waiting for the proper funeral and post-funeral rites to perform so that he may join his ancestors. But his purgatory, it's far too beautiful to be reality or the other place of perpetual suffering. You're a saint awaiting eternal salvation and prosperity to enter into happiness of heaven," Ruka tells him. Yes, this is true. She has raised a wonderful and beautiful child with the heart of gold and fire. She raised him to kindness, and he shown her in love. He has grown into a very handsome, strong man. Kojo is a good man and deserves to be brought up to heaven, be with mighty king and his heavenly father, where there will be eternal happiness. An angel awaiting to receive his wings, so that he may join her in heaven. Suddenly, Kojo tenses up, in full alert upon hearing gentle footsteps approach, and glanced to see a beautiful Tenyo from earlier. She carried a golden bowl filled with deliciousness, fresh fruit, as she sat down next to his mother. Gently she smiled kindly before sitting next to Ruka, and reached for the string instrument that Kojo reckons as a biwa, and begins to play a soft heavenly melody unknown to him, but nonetheless, it was beautiful enough to calm his soul. That's a Tenuo? He knew this due to legends he heard as a kid, often seen in kabuki or non-plays, that told stories of heavenly women falling in love with ethereal men. Yes, however, what you see as a Tenuo, others would view her as an angel, Cupid, are seraphim. Since you and I are both born and raised in the Shinto region, and our ancestors in accordance Buddhism, they appear as a tenuo or tenin, where there are many like her. Ruka explains. Ah, so they appear as something one would be comfortable and familiar with then. That's understandable, since he would hate to see that angels truly look like in their true forms. Mother? Yes? How long am I to remain here? He asked. Patience, Kojiro. There is no time here. You are a soul waiting to be persified, and remains of sin and punishment. Ruka says. What sins have he committed? Kojiro pondered. Though his had a few occasional with the 7 deadly sins, such as pride and envy, but it's then Kojiro recalls his time alive as he remembers killing demons. So, he broke into heavenly rule. Shall not kill. Despite being wicked creatures hell-bound on bloodlust, demons were basically still human, and Kojiro had slain many, many demons ever since he became a demon slayer in Hashira. Therefore, he had subsequently killed things that aren't people but were people, and now the blood was on his hands. The tenuo played a short, odd note on the biwa, a sound resembling the sound of mockery, as if rebuking him from his mishaps. But beknownst to Kojiro, he is already forgiven this, for he did defend the innocent. And, there was lust. Yes, the lust for his beloved wife. Of course he waited until holy matrimony to fulfill his circumstances, but Kojiro still remembered how eagerly excited he had been. He was a man with needs, okay? He was only made him human. At least he remained faithful to his wife, and together they birthed a beautiful and healthy son. Kojiro's thoughts trailed off, and soon melancholy washed over his soul and memories, as his last moments with Yin coursed through his mind. The beautiful music that tenuo is playing does not stop the sorrow from bleeding into his soul. Yin, his beloved wife, so beautiful, and yet he's caused her great grief. He can't abandon her. He loves her. And Tayo, his precious little son, he's still so very young and would wonder where his dad went. For a moment, Kojiro wanted to hate himself for dying too soon. He had to get back to them. He needed to get back out there. Mother, his voice is low and quivering, with urgency as he quickly lifted his head from Ruka's lap. I need to go back. I need to get to my family. I need to. Kojiro, I can't leave them. You cannot go back, my son. Ruka gave her son a sad look. Kojiro felt his throat tighten, his gritted teeth together, finding her answer unacceptable, yet frustration enveloped as his shoulders slumped in defeat. Gently, Ruka hugs her son, squeezing him softly, a gesture he remembers she did to calm him down as a child. As a young adult, it still worked just the same. The tenuo beside her stops playing, and Kojiro's gaze meets hers, beseeching her to give him an answer, but she just slightly stands and excuses herself. He swallowed the hard lump in his throat. So, I am to remain here forever, then? Not in purgatory, Kojiro. He shook his head no, refusing that he was clearly already decided for him. I cannot stay. I am not ready to pass on. Send me back, please, mother. Golden and red eyes stare into deep scarlet ones, pleading. My family. I need to be there for them. Kojiro, do you not remember? You're already with them. You know this. Yes, but not physically. But I want to tell them I love you one more time. The truth managed to bring the smallest of smiles to his sad face. I did not get to say goodbye. His voice, Lord, it sounded weak and regretful. An opportunity missed. Why can I not go back? Because Kame-sama has a different plan for you, my son. You must have faith. She pulled back from him. What is that plan? Just pass on and forget about his family? To never tell Yin that he loves her ever again? He did good, didn't he? Yet, it sure didn't feel like it. My sweet flame. My beautiful snowflower. Kojiro smiled sadly. I left her nothing but grief and a heavy heart. She's going to cry because of me. This time we had together was short-lived. I wish I could have said and done so much more for her. Ruka watched her son's gaze over the sorrowful tears, his spirit aching, and she could help but shed a tear as well. She recalls a time when her death had left her beloved husband and her son's father, Shinjiro, a bitter, sunken hulk of his former self. He flatly blamed himself for not being strong enough to stand to that day. She still feels his sorrow. Her silly husband, and now here's her son, a spitting image of his father, and blaming himself for dying so young and leaving his lover behind. She is going to cry because she loves you, Kojiro. Ruka pulls her son closer to her, allowing him to rest his head against her shoulder as arms embrace him, to keep him close and to help soothe him. You have said what you needed to, and had done so much for her. Kojiro believed his mother's words. Yin's the keeper of his heart, as he remained in nights of passion and his face buried into her neck as he whispered sweet nothings and I love you into her ear, and let those waves of emotion rock his fruitful soul. The devotion and passion and love he harbored for her safety in the burning flames of his soul. Tayu, my little flame, my son, he's going to grow up without a father. You'd love him from the moment he was born and gave him nothing but love. That's better than giving him 1,000 pieces of gold, Ruka says. That's right. As Kojiro remembers holding his son, as the baby boy used his chest to catch his tears whenever he cried, Kojiro told him I love you over and over and meant it every single time. Oh, great heavens! Does his chest hurt, despite not being alive? His body quivers like a leaf in the wind as he embraced his mother for dear life, nearing her comfort. What do I do now, mother? You must wait, my son, is all Ruka said. As much as she loved for the manifestation son to join her in the afterlife, a plan has been set in motion, and Ruka knew that soon a revival will soon take place, as a life will be sacrificed for her son's soul. Somewhere in the world of the living, a healer was making her rounds, and all Ruka could do in this moment is to comfort and hold her son, and cherish the moment with him. In the meantime, Ruka pulled away, her deep red gaze staring into Kojiro's golden and red ones as she cradled his face. Tell me about your life, my son. With that, Kojiro let out a choked sob, a smile crossing his lips, as a sigh of love bleeding into his soul. Positivity and hope filled him again. The possibility that maybe faith will be kind to him. Where do I begin?